Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session on how can QA teams optimize their testing efficiency. My name is Tisha Thakkar and I'll be your host today. Rupal is going to be the speaker. Rupal, would you just share this presentation please?
Sure, let's do that.
So before I hand it off to Rupal, who is going to be our speaker, let me explain some housekeeping items. So first, this event is being recorded and a recorded version of this webinar will be available. So how will you get access to this recording? Don't worry. Once the recording is ready, you'll receive an email with the instructions on how to access it. Now for the best viewing experience, please close out any unnecessary applications that may be running in the background so that your internet bandwidth is optimized. And last, the most important one. If you experience any technical issues, please send a note through the question field that is located beneath the panels. I'll be on hand to help as quickly as possible. At the same time, our responses can also be read in the same Q&A panel. Now, this is going to be an interesting, insightful session. So let's keep your questions and suggestions coming in, please. Please post all your questions, feedback, or even your experiences in the same Q&A panel button that is in the bottom. Feel free to ask as many questions and share information as many as you like, and we'll be there to give reply to most of them during this session. With this, I'd like to give introduction for our presenter, Rupal. So Rupal is a business strategist at QMetry. She comes with a lot of experience in the test management domain and business insights. Now, with over 12 years of work experience in the testing and automation domain, her strength lies in knowing the exact needs of the customer. With these exact needs, she is known for offering them the best of class solutions through the QMetry range of products. Now, from past few years, she has taken a deep interest in Atlassian ecosystem and the marketplace apps. She has been involved in many successful Atlassian marketplace app implementations for enterprises like PwC, Jeffries, Cox, H&M, Nixon, and many more. At this time, I would like to turn over to Rupal. Over to you, Rupal.
Thank you so much, Disha, and welcome everybody to the session. So today we're going to be focusing on two aspects, as you already know by now. One is testing efficiencies, and the second one is QMetry for Jira. As the name suggests, QMetry for Jira is our flagship product, specifically focused on enabling agile teams on the pathway of continuous testing based off DevOps platform. A quick insight into why QMetry for Jira. QMetry for Jira basically offers optimum value for testing teams in the Atlassian ecosystem. It not only intends to offer test management piece within the Jira platform, but it also offers the capability to build your own application lifecycle management around the testing platform that it offers, along with the Atlassian product suite. If you look at the peers, there are multiple apps that provide you this capability, whereas QMetry for Jira is a one-stop solution. It offers all the capabilities from testing, authoring, automation, ad hoc or expertise testing, integrations with tools across the DevOps pipeline, all in one app itself. QMetry for Jira proudly states to be first to offer expertise testing on the Atlassian ecosystem as a test management solution. Early on, we used to offer the native Jira experience in the previous versions, and then we, studied the layered approach, and we proudly can say now that we offer best of both through the hybrid approach. So the QMetry for Jira app in the current version goes beyond the limitations that Jira compels on the native Jira experiences, and also does offer the capabilities that testing team needs for a deeper and tighter hand holding with the peers, development or project teams, yet getting the best that of test management experience within the Jira interface itself. Now, moving on to the next slide, here is a quick perspective on the customers that that we have value-based relationship with, that basically vouch for the value that QMetry brings onto the table. And there are a lot of case studies that we have, just in case if you'd like to pursue the journey that they've taken with us as a test management solution. Now, speaking with different customers and testing teams, we basically understand that the testing teams that are in the Atlassian ecosystem are either onto an no tool based platform. That means they're either using Excel or somehow managing their testing activities within the Atlassian ecosystem itself. The second category are the ones that are actually using test management apps in this ecosystem. And the third one is the ones that are actually using legacy systems, standalone solutions that are not in line to the ideology that the Atlassian brings onto the table. Talking to these teams that have migrated away from any of these category towards QMetry for Jira, we can actually bring 30% the overall total cost of ownership down, as well help the teams with 50% higher ROI. And the focus still remains on the testing efficiencies and how basically we can achieve it with QMetry for Jira. If you look at testing efficiencies from the book's perspective, there are a lot of quantifiable equations that you would actually drill it down to, from bugs found to bugs resolved, the velocity of it and the percentages of it. And there is also a good overlap between testing efficiency and testing effectiveness. The focus of this particular presentation is to actually understand how a test management platform, and that too specifically QMetry for Jira, can enable testing teams in individual persona, individual team members in their specific role, help basically leverage this platform and get towards better testing efficiencies. And if you look at this, the testing efficiency from that perspective, I would basically categorize this into these 5 major aspects. So when you're transitioning away from a particular methodology into which you're actually functioning, or you have assets managed into, obviously you're looking towards improvising that. But the transition isn't easy. So the smoother the transition, installation, configuration, enablement, user acceptance, learning becomes a very, very vital part of bringing efficiency at the intent at which, or the pace at which you intended to bring with the testing tools. And that bundled with easy setup also becomes very vital in implementation of the solution. Now, quality analytics and powerful test authoring basically drills down to how well you can reuse your already created test assets, and that will be actually be an outcome of how well your teams can collaborate and quickly act into the entire loop chain. And that can actually result into faster execution. So these are all basically interwoven, but that's what we'll actually cover once we go to the demonstration aspect of it, right? So that's at the heart of the session today. If you look at the start of implementation, the first point of contact that we meet up with is either a Jira administrator who would actually be in charge of implementing, onboarding, configuring the test management app or the testing process, in combination with a product owner or a project owner or a program owner. And because QMetry for Jira is within the Atlassian ecosystem and it offers enterprise grade flexibility, it also brings onto the table highly secure interfacing while you actually install QMetry. Though it's a test management solution that brings in such huge value, it is very, very simple to install it. Just like any other app, you go to find apps, you install it, and then comes the part that brings in the configurability and security and no impact on Jira from performance perspective. So when we go to the demonstration, I'll also quickly highlight how quick and easy it is to install and configure QMetry. Now, why I say it brings in enterprise grade test management capabilities is because it offers very granular permission to every project, to every user that will have access to your testing piece in that Jira project. So if you look at your overall native Jira experience, that extends the user role experience that Jira compels, which are usually more suitable to project teams. Whereas when you talk about QMetry for Jira, it provides you testing team specific user permissions. Again, you can also turn on and off the QMetry app on certain projects that might not be testing relevant, also on issue types that you don't want to really cover from test coverage or traceability perspective. So there is no nuisance created in terms of the team members who needs to actually be focused on QMetry, see it in that project, on those issue types, and on those particular with that specific user role only if they're authorized to author test cases, not execute. And if you have vendor partners, if you don't want them to export assets out of the system that are linked to executions or of the sort, of create versions of test assets, right? So that is at length you would be able to control and have a very specific approach to your testing capabilities and have a very clearly defined scope even at the configuration level. QMetry also offer pan project configurations. Now, templatization is very, very common when you have multiple project teams working in the same Jira instance. You would absolutely want to replicate the efforts that have already been put into practice. So you can easily, clone a lot of, customization that you might have done in one project. Also, replicate some of the preferences. As I mentioned earlier, we bring in the hybrid approach, the best of both the native Jira experience test management apps bring in, as well as the layered approach. So whatever, some of those very vital Jira fields also can be imported and brought in sync to your testing test assets, right? And that in turn overall basically helps in saving the configuration time and quick onboarding of the tool, as well as defining a clear scope of which team members or resources would be actually be focused and working on which particular projects. Then we come to the heart of commencing, executing, and translating the overall testing activities. So when we start with a Scrum Master or a QA Release Manager, the scope or the definition of your testing activity becomes very vital, and that's where you would also want to focus on optimized test design. Uh, Most of the times, when you're looking at the overall modularization of your assets, reusability and referenceability is at the heart of it. QMetry offers project teams to create assets that are contained in their projects, and then you can easily cross-reference those projects, or you can also create a centralized repository of test cases in one project and reference them wherever relevant. So the approach is absolutely your choice. You have either of the route to go with, and QMetry will help you leverage the referenceability, reusability, and even modularization. So QMetry specifically offers this feature called data parameterization, which helps you reiterate a lot of combination of your test data without creating duplicate assets. It also offers a very smart test execution planning. You can execute the same set of test cases across different environments, across different sprints, releases, matrices, across different testers and different geographies without losing previous execution records. Even when you're looking at traceability, you'd be able to track the traceability or create a mind map of your story from requirement to test cases to executions. Not only the latest execution, if you want to look at previous ones, that is also possible. And at the heart of test authoring, if I come back to test authoring, it's very easy to import your test cases. There is no humongous efforts going into, you don't have to align resources to actually create and match to the template to before you actually import your assets into QMetry. We have the capability to organize your test assets and folders, so you can create a specific tree hierarchy depending on to the milestones of the project, or modules of your product, or type of as simple as type of testing you want to perform. on that particular application, and it offers ability to track the changes made and bring in end-to-end traceability. The exploratory testing piece brings in automated test documentation. The entire effort that a tester would actually put into while you're recording your web-based application testing, it is actually documenting your summary, your input data. It's capturing that, it's capturing screenshots, and the defects that you log right in between as well will have the entire platform details from where you're recording this detail. So there's a lot of information that is automatically captured, and on a click of a button it will convert it into an auto documented test case. You can also fire an execution straight up from there, right? And similarly, while you're actually scoping in your automation results through your APIs in QMetry, it will also provide you the capability to provide a lot of additional information onto your automation test cases automatically. And again, for QA and QE team members, apart from the referenceability, reusability, ease of usage, and ease of looking up assets, the UI UX experience has been designed from the perspective that it's very easy for them to quickly identify, search, create filters that they can make public, so other team members can also leverage those filters. So there are a lot of assets and configurations that we have created for testing team members or testers as well, that they can create and other team members can apply in their relevant projects or relevant modules as well. And similarly, we also have a lot of execution configurations that I'm really excited to show you once we go to the product aspect of it. Collaboration is at the heart of your overall bringing in better testing efficiencies through QMetry Test Management. Likewise too, as enterprises with geographically distributed teams working in different set of projects and different set of time zones, it offers you the capability to notify team members. Whenever you tag a team member in comments, they'll get an automatic email notifications. You can track audit changes and hence overall bring in increased productivity to your teams. And again, we have seamless integration. I'll go back to the point that we made earlier. Though QMetry for Jira is designed for the Atlassian ecosystem to reside in the Jira interface itself, it is intended to help testing teams build your own application lifecycle management around it. You can choose from a wide area of automation tool depending on to your needs, and it'll still provide capabilities to integrate with it. You can absolutely out of the box leverage the integration we offer with the CI/CD tools like Bamboo, Jenkins, and soon Azure as well. And in the next month, we are also going to be offering capabilities of incorporating Git, Bitbucket, and be able to author, update your BDD scripts as well from your Jira, and your business analyst or a developer working on a story can, as well as a tester, can contribute to your overall user story and other aspect of it. Now, you'd also be able to define your automation integration approach. So the way QMetry offers integration, you can either leverage the from the wide area of automation APIs, or also decide to go the open API route and kick off the integration execution through your CI/CD tool, and QMetry will auto pop come back and update the results through and through from your Jira requirement to test cases to executions to issues likewise. And as I mentioned earlier, QMetry offers the best of layered approach as well. So it offers enterprise grade version control mechanism across the test assets. You'd be able to track who made a change, when, at what timestamp, and what changes were made to which specific field itself. Right? Now, coming back to the next set of team members into an ideal of a generic testing team would be somebody who would actually look at a macro level perspective. So the reports in QMetry have been actually been designed to offer very quick actionable insight while keeping the tactical level details also intact. So if you're looking at how your testing teams are actually executing and making progress in terms of executions, what are your efforts from manual versus automation, which set of assets is it impacting? But when you talk about testing efficiency, I would personally believe that the most important aspect, apart from the rest that you would see, are traceability and test coverage. So when you look at the traceability that QMetry offers, you can very well define the outline. If you want to trace from requirements to test case to execution to defect as requirement at the heart of it, lot of teams that we have worked with in the past have tracked backwards. They would want to have defects identified. What are the most pressing issues that my teams have registered, which requirements are they impacting. So you have that flexibility to actually change the layout or the framework of the report and have a mind map, as I mentioned earlier, to pan out and see the overall scope of testing and the traceability from that perspective. And again, test coverage, that is very vital for any QA manager, release manager, to see the health of the sprint or the release component from the overall perspective while they're looking at the go-to-market approach. And we also have cross-project reporting with custom fields enabled. You can also create your own gadgets from it and add it to the dashboard. Now, very important aspect when you're looking at the Atlassian DevOps ideology is the Confluence integration. So when you're looking at the reporting perspective, QMetry also offers a very strong Confluence integration. So the other stakeholders that do not really want to come to the test management app to look at the insights, we offer the capabilities to publish the very vital statistics that you need to provide a one spot view to the relevant team members or business stakeholders, to publish, even incorporate and publish even QMetry or testing aspect into it through the seamless updates that we offer through Confluence integration. Right? And if you look at the business leaders, if you look at optimized use of your testing activities or a test tool, the way QMetry has been defined and designed, the hybrid approach and the value that it brings, it is still at the most competitive price in the test management app ecosystem in the Atlassian marketplace. We have a dedicated, if you look at, though it's an app, we have as a product organization, we believe in providing holistic support. So when you start with evaluation, every touch point that we create, we ensure there is an efficient usage of your time, efforts, and resources. So when you start with exploring QMetry, there'll be an end-to-end product expert providing you the help with the suitability throughout the process as well. When you onboard QMetry, we have an excellent product support and the ecosystem and environment or platform knowledge base that has been created. We also have very simple and easy inbuilt migration that is part of the app to help you easily transition from Excels or the Zephyrs of the world. We also have advanced migration utilities to take care of your end-to-end advanced level complex migration needs with minimalistic or zero data loss. Again, the QMetry for Jira itself has been defined in a way that the overall UI is very intuitive, and we'll soon experience that as soon as we move on to the UI, the product demo with minimalistic learning curve. And once you have signed up with QMetry as well, to ensure there is, we've seen this in the Jira ecosystem or the Atlassian ecosystem that the ramp up on project teams and on testing teams is very frequent, and hence the account manager that'll be tied up to your account will ensure that there is all-round support provided around that as well. And site is at the heart of QMetry's value system, and we believe in continuous innovation. We have releases that continuously expand through features and integration capabilities, and these are usually the focus when business leaders are looking at optimal usage of testing tools or bringing better testing efficiencies. Now, having said that, we'll come back to some of the matrices that has been set basically from the tool perspective, and then we'll quickly move on to the product demo. So if you look at either statistics with QMetry for Jira, 30% of saving on the overall setup time, 30% increase on ROI with 50% faster GTM versus what you might already be doing with the current tool set or Excels of the world. 45% of faster test authoring backed by 20% of capturing of executions at a faster rate, and 35% increase in the product visibility through collaboration and a cumulative result of the other aspects. So that's the end to the presentation. I am super excited to move to the product demonstration. So this is QMetry in your Jira interface, in your Jira ecosystem. As I was talking or mentioning earlier, as soon as you download your Jira, downloading your QMetry app is as simple as downloading any other app in the Atlassian ecosystem. And as soon as you do that, you would be able to view in the configurations tab the details through which you can quickly set up QMetry and define which projects you would want to see QMetry into. So this is my project. If I go to project settings, I can see at the bottom, as soon as I've downloaded QMetry, I can see at the bottom the QMetry project settings. And under the QMetry project settings, I can define which projects I want to enable or disable this app into. So this clears out the clutter and helps you stay focused in terms of your Jira applications. And again, you can also define, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is very much an enterprise grade feature to have a controlled approach to who can see what and perform what application use case in QMetry. So from here, you can define which testing team member or which user role can execute, create versions, define test plan, perform administrative activities, get access to exploratory testing, reports, requirement, and if you have any external team members working, what you can import and export out of the ecosystem, right? So that's the global setup that you can define to ensure your Jira is clutter free. You reflect QMetry only where you actually need to, and define who will have what sort of access to which projects in terms of testing activities. Again, we also have project level configurations. This is where your project managers or your QA managers or release managers would be focused in. So you have project level configurations. You can define your own custom fields for different test assets, maybe test cases, executions, or test plan. And one really interesting aspect that most of our users like about QMetry is when you're creating any of additional fields into QMetry, you can also copy these and you can apply it to your other projects. So you can just copy a configuration or customization you've done here and apply it to other projects. Similarly, as I mentioned earlier, likewise to your native Jira experience, we also let you extend your Jira fields of the sort of label or component, and you'd be able to extend it to your testing assets as well. So we not only create your own custom fields, you can also extend your Jira fields and have a a same line of thread between your project assets versus your testing assets right here in QMetry as well. And as I mentioned earlier, you can also have your own parameters. So we have data parameterization in QMetry. And for example, I've created a parameter called username and password, the most relatable parameterization use case. We added few details of username and password combinations. Again, it is absolutely at the discretion of the testing team. So this is the level of configurability that QMetry offers. You can very well define as a testing team if you want your test case execution status to be exclusive to your step statuses, right? And you can also define it to be rolled up or rolled down. And you can also create your own custom execution field here. As I mentioned earlier, you can execute your test cases across different matrices or different platforms or different builds. If you're extremely agile, you can be in the Jira ecosystem of project releases, sprints. But for agile teams that have frequent builds, drops, or iterations, we also offer build capability here, right? And then there are audit log configuration settings and re-indexing. We also offer exhaustive open APIs if you want to extend QMetry's integration capabilities outside the current ecosystem. There are exhaustive, simple to use APIs into QMetry. Now, if we quickly, we move past through configuration and setup and how QMetry offers templatization, configurability, and extendability of Jira capabilities to QMetry, we now move on to test management. So if you see here, and again, please note, just a disclaimer, this is not going to be a detailed product demo. We are going to be focusing on the key features of QMetry specifically that will help testing teams bring a higher testing efficiencies. We would always recommend for a detailed product demo to register for the demonstration, and I'll soon share a insight or a link to that. But coming back to the testing screen, so there are test cases. This module is where you author your test cases, and then test cycle is where you actually scope in your assets and execute them. Test plan is basically intended to offer the capabilities to testing teams to basically, for QA managers and test leads to plan and track releases with the test plan. And you can also link multiple test cycles within a test plan to be on top of your QA efforts. And then we have test reports to help you track the traceability, test coverage, defect velocity, and manual versus automated efforts, and custom create gadgets as well. Now, if you look at this particular aspect, when you look at test authoring, there are multiple aspects to it that basically help testing teams work quicker. The first one is the ability to import assets quickly without too much of an effort. Second one is to be able to organize quickly, manage, quickly look up and fire execution or make bulk operations. The second aspect of it is reusability, referenceability, and modularization. The third and the most important one is also be able to track versions, track changes, and the fourth one is to collaborate. So that is where we're going to focus next 5 to 7 minutes on. On the left hand side, you can very well organize your test assets in different folder hierarchy, and you can create a hierarchical structure, and you can track your test assets. Again, you can sort your assets by multiple approach. There are various functions that you can perform on different folders from here. So as you see here, you can modularize your folders, copy the entire folders with the assets. You can quickly export them from here. And there are a lot of teams that we have worked in the past that really believes into ad hoc testing. So you can quickly fire an execution directly from here and start with the ad hoc testing, or you can also do a bulk linkage to a story and set up the traceability. So for example, if you're doing a sanity testing and you want to have all your test cases or from regression added to a specific story linked to regression testing, you can do that as well from here. Now, if you're looking at, let me make this a little bit cleaner. So when you're looking at this list view here, this is a very clean slate, a great view apart from the reports for somebody in the release manager or a scrum master view to quickly get an update of how your test is in a specific folder, on a specific milestone looking like. So you can see these are my test case in this specific version, what is the latest execution status or the review status. I can also see who's assigned to, but you're not restricted to this way. You can customize what we are viewing from here, and you can pull up the details that you need to. Now, if we come back to quick reusability, so you can clone any of your test cases from here. While you're cloning your test case, QMetry quickly provides you the capability if you want to, and this is very important while you're reusing your assets, right? Do you want to reuse all the assets or a latest and the greatest version? Do you want to move along the collaboration that you had in this team, or you just want to leave it here and create just an asset there? Do you want to move attachments of the sort, right? And you can copy them in different folders. Now, this was about cloning from one folder to another. What if you want to actually look up for your test cases and move them to different folders as well? So that is very well possible. Different projects as well, so that is very well possible. I'll come back to that in a little bit. But when you're looking at a test case, this is what I was talking about earlier. You can search for your test cases by multiple filter options, and you can also set filters that you can make public. So this is one of the filter that I'd, let me, uh, so this is one of the filter that I'd created earlier. I can apply it, and accordingly it'll be applied here. I can copy a filter, I can create another filter, or from this particular filter, and this is what basically QA teams can leverage and reuse between different project teams as well, right? So that's from the ability to reuse a lot of configurations that you might be making from the overall perspective. And you can also, there are two kinds of updates that QMetry offers. There are a lot of times that the testing teams are actually reviewing test cases and they don't want to create a new version. You can also make an in-field update from here. And if you see, all of these fields are rich text enabled. So whatever highlighting, hyperlinking you need to do, you can do it from here. So you can also make an in-field update. You can create a new version. You can quickly start authoring into this from here. You can clone steps as well. So that's another level of reusability within the particular asset. The next one that I'm going to go into from here, just give me a minute. Sorry. The next one that I'm going to go into from here is the capability to actually, templatize and start using your test cases from that perspective, right? So if you're looking at your test cases and you want to quickly start creating copies of a test case, you can very well do that from here. So let me go back. So this is my test case here, and I can very well minimize this view. And you can create, as I mentioned earlier, as many custom fields of your choice of different kinds. You can, see here that these are grouped, and some of these fields are extended from Jira. Now, when I'm creating, as I mentioned earlier, you can create an in-field update, or you can create a new version of the test case. And whatever changes you make from here to there, that'll be recorded as a new version, right? So this is, and I can track the audit logs from one version to another in terms of who made the change from this version to a previous version. And I can, the field modify the old and the new values, so on and so forth. Now, the feature that I was intending to demonstrate earlier was there is the second level of reusability. When you're creating a new test case, you can click another, and whatever template or outline of the test case you create, as many test cases you can create of similar type with just few details, a few minor details here and there. So that's the next level of templatization that you can create while you're already authoring a test case. So for example, if I'm creating regression on RC, uh, and I'm creating couple of test cases of the similar type, uh, business unit, right? And I'll say create. So it's created this test case. Now it's copied all the other values, but it'll let me create another test case here. Right? So that's how QMetry offers the next level of cloning and reusability or templatization from that perspective. Now, while you're working on this particular, let me reset this. So while you're working on this, we were talking about the capabilities to copy your test cases within the project, right? So you can create a clone and you can copy them from one folder to another. You'd also be able to move and reuse. So you can cut and paste, or you can move them between different folders or archive or update test cases. But what if you want to not reference? Referencing between project is absolutely there. What if you want to copy the test case, create a copy of that to another Jira, into another project, or entirely new Jira instance? So this was what we were talking about. If you have multiple Jira instances in the same organization, and if you want reusability between not only Jira within the project, between Jira project on the same instance, you can also leverage that between QMetry instance. And you'd also, that is also use case that facilitates team that are migrating from server to cloud or server to data center, which is a very common use case nowadays with the Atlassian wave that we are seeing push towards cloud, right? And again, as I mentioned earlier, we have capabilities to look at test cases from multiple aspects. Let me go back here and let me, right. So this is the test case that I want to basically leverage. So, the other aspect that we were talking about earlier from the test cases perspective was parameterization. So this is again the extreme important level of parameterization that QMetry offers, modularization that QMetry offers to teams to reduce the authoring cost, reduce duplicacy, and optimize their testing efforts from execution and test authoring perspective. So for the same set of test case, when you say QMetry will reference the username and password, and you can decide how many groups of parameters you want to apply to this particular test case. So, for the same test case, I want to execute these three combinations for one iteration, another three combination for another iteration. I can absolutely do that. I'll be more than happy to quickly show that to you on the execution screen. Right? So the next level of parameterization that we offer in QMetry, you can also make attachments. And this is what I was talking about. Apart from versioning and audit log tracking, collaboration is what QMetry actually banks upon for teams to quickly act in terms of rectifying activities and close the loop in agile iterative approach. So you can get into comment mode on every test asset. You can reference team members, they'll be notified accordingly as well. So for example, if I want to call in a team member, and this will notify the team member as well, and I can also add links to the shared documents from here, right? So that's basically about the overall test authoring aspect from testing efficiencies perspective. I'll wait for your question by the end of this session, but let's start with the execution aspect of it, right? So when you're looking at the execution, the look and feel is consistent across QMetry. You can leverage the folder hierarchy, and you can perform a lot of activities on different test folders, and you can quickly reorganize your test assets from here, and you can see the list view of your test cases. So this is what a project or a program manager would ideally want to see. What is the progress on executions? I can quickly hoover through and see the details of my test cycles. And again, we have a filter value here. You can very well customize your view from here and decide what you want to see on this particular screen. Right. So when you're looking at the execution aspect of it, basically QMetry lets you define the execution by test cases. So you can scope in your execution by test cases. And again, as I mentioned earlier, when you're scoping in your test execution by test cycles or even by requirements, Jira requirements, QMetry lets you reference your test cases from other projects as well. Excuse me. So you can look up for your test cases by multiple filter options, and by various combinations of standard and custom fields, and you can very well apply the test cases that you want to scope in here. Again, you also have a choice to actually scope in your execution by stories. There are a lot of teams that we have worked in the past that actually want to scope in test execution by story is the wrong word, I would say test requirements, because different testing teams would actually define different issue types in Jira as test requirement. A lot of them also use, apart from story, as epics or test requirements as a custom issue type as requirement as test requirement. So you can have multiple issue types treated as test requirement, and you can set up traceability. You can scope in your execution across projects by those. And when you're referencing your Jira user story or epics, you can also write a JQL to quickly look up for those test assets. So I've written one, and you can actually scope in your execution by your JQL as well. Right. Again, you can make attachments here as well. You can enter into a collaborative mode and add comments. Now, the reusability that I'm focusing on from execution perspective comes at the list view. So if you're planning your execution as well, you can quickly go here. Okay, this is what I saw here. And okay, this is what I saw here. Automated test cycle to be executed on Chrome has entirely failed. Or rather, this one I see here, car insurance cycle is failed on certain test cases. Let me clone that. When I'm cloning it, I want to clone it to a current project. I can do that. I can clone it to an entirely different project. And both the cases, I can define what I want to carry forward. Now, this is the way you optimize your test execution. You can define, I only want the failed test executions from here. So you can say, just give me, the failed test execution. Let me expand this. I want only the failed test execution, test cases that have no defect linked to it, executed only on Chrome. And then I can define what I want to carry forward. So you scope in what you want to re-execute under a different scope. You only filter those test assets, define the environment or metrics against which you want to execute, and decide what you want to carry forward in the new scope of execution. Right? So that's how you quickly get to optimize and focus, have a focused approach in terms of execution. Now, the second level of execution that is defined here from that perspective is, let me fire an execution from here, is, when you're, that was from planning or scoping perspective. Now this is from a testing team's perspective. I am a tester. I come here and I see multiple hundreds of test cases here, and I want to have a focused approach. So from here you can very well group or sort your test case. I just want to see executions that are assigned to me, or only failed executions, right? So I can quickly pick them up and start working on those executions directly. So that's no cluttered approach to your overall execution. Again, I have a quick perspective on these color lines that you see here gives me a quick perspective of the execution status of this test case in the current view. And these are, I see there is a right. So we have on the left hand side, thank you for the time check. So on the left hand side, we have the list view of all the executions that I need to carry out. And the beauty about Qmetry here is that you can define a new scope of execution on the same test case. So if you want to execute this particular test case, only the defect test cases that have defect log to it, and start a new execution and retain the entire execution iterations that you performed with the history, that is very well be possible, right? So if you see here, I'll bring you to the, if you just want to bring in the defect as well at the top of it, you can do that. And I'll come back to the screen here. But you'd also be able to see the test data parameterization from that perspective, right? So when you're looking at the overall test cases, let me let it define the test assets. So when you're looking at the overall test cases, there are multiple information that you can store, and when you have parameters assigned to it, you'd also be able to pull up those parameters. Let me pull up this view, and you'd also be able to pull up the details and pass on the execution log. We also have some of the shortcut information here from that perspective, right? So we go to the test case detail view, and you can see the details that you need to, or you can start the execution. Now, while you're logging in the execution right away, you'd also be able to define and see, what you need to from the, if you want to see the latest execution overall summary. And you'd also be able to, in the meanwhile, keep a tag on the macro level perspective. What are the test cases? How many of them being executed? And also a quick bug summary. So whatever bugs were logged linked to this particular issue will be visible here. You can also make attachments, track the attachments made across the executions here, pull it up and track the linkage to the failed execution. So that's in brief about execution. There is much to it, but we'll stay focused and quickly move on with the time check on the report. So we have varied reports in Qmetry here. And if you look at some of the key reports, you can quickly look up for workflow statuses. And when you looking at workflow statuses, you can create cross project report here. If you want to see the utilization of different team members and which assets are being worked upon by different team members, what are the executions that they needed to perform on. If you want to see at all versions, the latest versions, all of this can be pulled up. And similarly, you can track automated versus manual efforts. And you can also track test cases with or without defects. We also have test coverage report. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we have traceability reports, which you can have the test cases at the heart of it, or the requirements at the heart of it, or the defect at the heart of it. And you can very well define the criteria. And if I want to look up for test cases that are of the higher priority, and I can add further multiple criteria. And I can also look up for test cases with all the latest execution status if I select the executions as well, and define a latest execution status is linked to it as well. And whatever filters I've selected here, I can save it as a gadget and publish it onto the dashboard as well. Right, so this basically will create a mind map of your requirement, from your requirement to test cases to execution, to defect. From that perspective, you can export it into an Excel and ship it off just in case if needed, right? And we'll quickly move on to expertise testing. So, before we do that, I quickly wanted to go to Confluence. So this is my Confluence page, and on my Confluence, I've had some of the macros enabled that help me incorporate that for a specific user story that I'm working on right now. I wanted to track the test plans, which is basically a combination of test cycles that you would want to scope in and track the execution on. You can keep a check on which cycles it incorporate and what is the status of the cycle. And if you want to focus on an individual cycle or all the included test cases in that cycle, you can actually drill down. This is a very common example of what you can publish and create a relevant insight into Confluence. But apart from the standard reports and the custom gadgets that you can create, you can also offer a centralized view to your business stakeholders within the Confluence as well. And now we come to one of the vital aspects of QMetry, that is QMetry's exploratory testing feature. We have a Chrome add-on where you can provide the URL and the API key to add additional layer of hierarchy information. We have an exploratory testing use case through which it captures the environment and the details around it, where it captures your screenshots of whatever testing you've performed, the input and expected outcome. I'll select a better use case in a little bit, but it also records the event log, and whatever defect that you might have logged would also be registered. The beauty about the entire defect that has been logged is that it'll also capture on the defect screen for the teams to be able to reproduce the steps. It also captures the information of the screenshot and the other environment details, which platform it was. So I just had one screenshot in my expertise testing session, but you'd also be able to add additional environment details that were captured by QMetry, from the perspective of which system it fired it from, what screen resolution, browser, operating system, and user agents. Right? So those are the kind of information that will be logged into your expertise testing, and you can directly create a test case straight off from here into your audience. So this takes care of your entire automated test documentation, and we're going to be having an entire end-to-end automation dedicated webinar session for automation. But as I mentioned earlier, you have absolute choice of how you want to set up the integration between a wide array of automation tool we offer integration with. Either use automation API, or we also have exhaustive, easy to use open APIs that you can have the automation populated into. Right. So that was the prime focus of the session today, to ensure we highlight QMetry's capabilities to support better testing efficiencies. I know I've taken a little bit longer than expected, but I just wanted to open up the forum for additional questions.
Thank you, Rupal. It was an interesting and insightful session. So with this, I want to give opportunity to everyone to submit their questions. If you have a question or any other insight that you have been itching to share with us, please go ahead. Right now is the correct time. Insert it into Q&A video and we'll address it as soon as they come in. Looks like we are already getting a couple of questions here. So Rupal, let me read one over that we just gotten. The question is, my team is using Zephyr Squad. If I want to move to QMetry, is there any way or what is the approach?
I'm sorry, Disha, I missed you in between. Can you come again?
Sure. So the question is, it is from Jason. The question is, my team is using Zephyr Squad. If I want to move to QMetry, what is the approach?
Right. So, we have an inbuilt migration from Zephyr Squad, and we offer end-to-end migration when you're looking at migrating your test assets. But if you're looking at an advanced level migration, from an older version or with any specific customization that you've done, we also offer hand-holding around it. So if you're migrating away from Zephyr Squad, there is seamless inbuilt migration that's available in the tool. If you're already using QMetry, or if you have QMetry enabled, you should be able to access it right away.
Okay. Now another question is like, while importing my test case, can I link my test case with story?
Uh, right. So if you're looking at the capability to provide linkage to test cases while making an import, that is very well available, and you can set the reference to it into one of the QMetry versions.
Okay. Questions. So I think there is this one more question that we can take. It is how to integrate Cucumber framework with Qmetry.
Right. So thank you for that question. But basically, we're going to be, and we'll keep you posted. We're going to be having a detailed session specifically dedicated to automation approach and integration with QMetry. But we have APIs. You can either leverage the REST APIs or go the Marvin route, or open APIs to integrate your Cucumber with QMetry. It's very easy, I think, three-step option, and you should be able to easily integrate. But we're going to be have a session around that in case if you need. One of our product experts will assist you with that. Post the session, we'll send you some information and documentation around it. We can also set up a separate session around it.
So thanks, Jacob, for the feedback. And sure, definitely we are going to have another session on automation as well, and we'll share invitation with you as well. So I think we have more questions, but we are short of time, so we'll answer them in their personal email. So thanks everyone. We would love to hear from you more. Share your feedback or queries on info@qmetry.com. Also, you will receive an email to download this recording. You can reply us back on the same email as well. Once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Till then, take care.
Thank you, everybody.